Today we'll be breaking down a little bit about what's going to happen in Crypto Week. I think you guys are going to like it. My name is Paul Barrow. Welcome back into the show. It is going to be a good one. Don't miss this one. I do want to thank our sponsor, and that is iTrust Capital. This is where you can go out there and get your own crypto IRA, self-directed, very easy to set up, and also very easy to manage. You can do everything from crypto, gold, silver. There's a lot available over there, and they've got a lot of new features. So make sure and check out iTrust Capital. Use our link down below to get a $100 funding reward and get started into building your own IRA. Listen, we've had Ron Hammond on the show before, and he was with the Blockchain Association at that time. He has come back to the show as a friend of the show with Wintermute. So great to have you back on.
Likewise, it's good to be back on the show, and it's a new capacity, but still doing many of the same things. So really excited to get into it.
I want to open up with a clip. Cody Carbone, you know him, of course, over at the Digital Chamber. And he gave us an odd on something, and I want to get your opinion on this, but let's play this clip. In terms of the odds of the Genius Act going through,
99% that we are going to get.
Those are good odds.
Those are good odds.
What's the odds of market structure coming through this year?
50-50 right now.
50-50. Those are not as good odds, Cody.
Not as good. I'm optimistic.
All right, so you've got it there. Ron, what's your percentage on Genius? Do you feel pretty confident on that one?
I'm feeling pretty confident at the current setting. We will see what happens if they actually have amendments to the bill itself, because that'll be telling. If they make any tweaks whatsoever, it's got to go back in the Senate, and the odds do drop a little bit. But overall, they still had a pretty high Senate count of 18 Democrats joining across the aisle. So still feeling confident, even if they make changes or not. But odds are, it seems like they won't. So I'd still put it probably around 99%, as Cody well said, for Genius at least. Be done by August too.
When you look at the market structure bill, that is a different animal. There's a lot of working parts in it. I know you're very active in that one specifically. What is your opinion on that one for a pass through what we'll see, at least from this year's standpoint? Or do you think this rolls into 26?
It remains to be seen. I'm going to probably say that fall 2025, October, November timeframe is going to be where the action is.
Okay.
So we've seen that at least the Senate has confirmed that they will take up market structure, and they have dedicated themselves to a timeline that's pretty aggressive. They said they want to have a draft out by early August, and they want to have a vote on that draft in the Senate come probably end of September, which it could probably bleed over to October. And then that likely means there's two different bills in market structure, and they got to combine those two bills together from the House as well as Senate. But at least right now in the short term, the key thing to watch for next week is how many Democrats come along with Republicans likely to pass the Clarity Act, because we saw with FIT 21, the bill version of Clarity last Congress, that bill got over 70 supporters, at least from the House on the Democrat side of the aisle. But this time it seems to be shaping up a little more partisan. Again, a lot of that really centers around more of the Trump family involvement in crypto, and there's been some additional language and clarity to address some of that to appease Democrats. But it will be, be telling to see where the vote count is, because for reference too, when it went to the committee, at least for FIT 21, there were there were 6 Democrats who supported that bill. Now, come this year, only 2 Democrats did. So we already seen a little lower threshold for votes here. So that is a pause for concern, but hopefully the Democrats can put away the partisan politics, because this isn't a Trump bill. This is a crypto regulatory framework. This is a very, very different animal we're dealing with here.
Yeah, for sure. So over 50%, or are you kind of on the same camp as Carbone with that?
I'm going to say 40% chance it gets done, but ask me next week after the vote counts and I'll have a much clearer idea.
All right, so maybe a little bit of update next week, which we'll be watching, of course, very closely, with Crypto Week being next week. However, we did get the Oversight Subcommittee hearing. This has now been postponed. So your insights to DC, I would say one of the best out there in the industry. What does this mean for the existing bills? Do you think this slows them down, especially the Genius Act, or is this just, typical DC speak right now on these postponements?
The reason why it got postponed is because Congress was not supposed to be in session last week, but they were voting on the big, beautiful bill, and it took quite some time. So that's solely why the House is out this week. That's why they got postponed in those committees. So we'll likely see those hearings happening either next week or the week after. And as we saw potentially, for those who may have catched it last week, there was Senator Lummis trying to put in some crypto tax provisions into the big, beautiful bill. Unfortunately, it didn't get accepted by a lot of the chair as well as the other members of Congress, which is expected. It was kind of a last-second push. But this is the House showing commitment that, hey, we want to work on crypto tax issues, even though we just did a big tax bill, there's a lot of issues, especially in crypto, on the tax front that need to be addressed. So I'm optimistic, but that's going to be a totally separate effort. And that's going to be likely a late 2025, early 2026 time to tell if that's actually got legs.
All right, so there's some things happening right now in the traditional markets. One, of course, was announced by Robinhood just this last week, and that is tokenized securities. That's happening mostly in Europe. I want to play a clip for you and then get your opinion of how this is affecting Congress today. Take a look.
Well, so they're live in the European Union, not live in the UK or the US.
I mean, it'd be widely exciting, right, if it were, for example, launched in the UK. What kind of things are they asking you to do to make sure that it's fine to do?
So what makes this possible now is clear regulations in the European Union for crypto assets. In the US, we do believe that the SEC has the authority to make it happen without legislation, which is interesting.
So how quickly can we expect
hard to
it?
predict.
Yeah.
And I actually think our event should help accelerate that. And actually, since our announcement, I've had a deluge of inquiries, private companies that actually want to access retail, to have their shares tokenized, to be a part of this revolution. I think that it's going to be a thing. I think this is so important that we're very motivated. We'd like to have thousands of private companies on the platform.
All right, so that's a big deal because you're talking about, this is a seismic shift. This happening in the UK, I was following your tweet right here, obviously with your announcement at Wintermute. Wintermute, a company that really does focus on what's happening in the EU and the UK. When you see that and you look at almost a situation right now where the US is going, wow, this is happening in the biggest markets, but it's not the United States. How much pressure is this going to put on DC to make a move on this quickly?
Vastly. And I can already confirm that I was on the Hill earlier. That's why I'm a little sweaty today. But it's because there's a lot of excitement on this. I mean, especially tokenized securities and tokenized equities. There's been a lot of excitement post the Robinhood announcement. They have a great team here in DC on the lobbying side, as well as Coinbase, too, has been itching to get in that space. And they had that kind of pseudo product of sorts. And so we're seeing a lot of interest from the companies here, and they're pushing DC, at least on the tokenization front, to your point and to Vlad's point. It's not really a legislative play. This is more of a regulatory play, but we haven't really seen yet explicit green light ready to go. Again, there's been some efforts like Coinbase and others that are pseudo like it, but that explicit green light has not happened yet. And now some of that could be largely due to the fact that the SEC task force is still up and rolling. Again, they're going to be here for another 3.5 years, so their timeline's a lot more, longer out compared to Congress, which operates in about 1.5 to 2 year cycles here. But they're largely probably what's happening is that they're waiting to see what happens with that market structure bill. Does that actually have legs in the Senate? And if it does, great, then they can pick it back off that for rulemakings and such at the SEC. If it were to stall out, that does change the SEC's at least strategy when it comes to providing regulatory clarity. Because if it's not going to come from Congress, if there's deadlock there, they have to more take initiative here to provide those clear rules of the road. So I think there's a lot more difference to the Congress here, but I can 100% say the Robinhood announcement definitely made some waves in DC. And if there's two teams more on the lobbying front that I've seen that have been weathering many storms and they've done a really, really good job, it's Coinbase and Robinhood. And of course, there's a lot more players in the ecosystem willing to help them out as well. So overall, I'm very confident that we're going to get some form of clarity on that front, especially more on the regulatory side for the tokenized side of things. But largely, they're probably waiting for Congress at least to see where the bill goes for clarity.
So this could really start to shift things around. It's a little surreal listening to Vlad say, oh, well, maybe the SEC will guide this out, because obviously we've seen a different spin of the coin over the last couple of years. I want to jump over to Wall Street to Web3. This is the digital asset markets meeting that they were planning. This is a full committee hearing. Brad Garlinghouse set for I think this might be one of his first larger appearances, but we'll also have Jonathan Levin from Chain Analysis, so he'll be fighting off a lot of the bad news coming in. But what do you think is going to happen here? Where do you think this is going, and what's the purpose?
So this is going to be the first full committee hearing for Senate banking on market structure. So this has not happened before. We had a subcommittee hearing about 2 weeks ago, but this is the full committee hearing. So Elizabeth Warren is going to be at this hearing. Oh, yeah. And the question going to be remain is, does she dictate the tone for the rest of the Democrats down the dais when they ask their questions? Because we do know there are pro-crypto Democrats on that committee, like Lisa Blunt Rochester from Delaware. She's actually led a crypto bill that got signed into law this year. So we've seen some champions, but we've also seen some of the loudest antagonists. Now, the question is, how much does Elizabeth Warren more dictate the narrative on the Democrat side? Because that'll be very telling. Will the market structure bill have a chance in the Senate? Will it be able to get a decent amount of bipartisan support, or are we only going to see one or two Democrats join the Republicans in this effort? And let's not also forget, the Senate's a much smaller body, and as we've seen with some recent bills, especially the big beautiful bill, some Republicans can be problematic as well. And every vote counts, especially in the Senate, and the magic number is 60. So you need to hit that threshold, and you need Democrats to come along. Even with a Republican sweep, this is the where of checks and balances in Congress here. So it's really important to keep on moving forward. But the backdrop of all this, of course, is President Trump for a lot of these folks. And there's a huge desire for Democrats to show that they're fighting Trump or the Republican agenda at any facet they can. And I think that's going to be, more, hopefully we can put away that partisan politics, but it'll be telling to see what happens at that hearing tomorrow. Again, you've seen some good players that have been there before, like Tim Assad, who's been more the Democrat witness. So we kind of know exactly what he's going to say. But the question more is, how aggressive will the Democrats come? And will they be open-minded, or will they be more shut off? Because at least in the House, it took several years to get those hearings, to give you more of a bipartisan approach and to get those vote counts. Whereas the Senate, they haven't done as much compared to the House work here. But which is kind of crazy to think about. Like the Clarity Bill, for example, was one of the bills that I worked on in some form or fashion back in 2017. And I thought that bill would hopefully get across the finish line of the Token Taxonomy Act in 2021 at the very latest. But here we are almost 8 years later, and we're still looking for a market structure bill. So as someone who's personally been very involved in this fight, my hope is that the Senate is taking the notes from the House that this is A, inevitable, but B, this is also not a Trump bill, and C, this is really necessary for the markets. Because to your point, Paul, about a friendly SEC, the pendulum swings the other way again, and that can happen in 3 years. So we want to have a situation where we have law instead of having guidance that can get stricken down, just like this current SEC has stricken down much of the guidance from the previous SEC. Yeah,
for sure. So it is a window for sure that could be looming upon us. And I think you look at Crypto Week next week, July 14th through 18th, this could really open up a lot of different analysis on, one, how a lot of these lawmakers are dealing with this, both from an incoming amount of lobbyists, but also maybe giving us a little bit of indication. What do you think is going to happen next week?
It is hard to tell. And again, a lot of this does come down to more how you dress it and how the narrative is in the media, because you have to remember that a lot of these members of Congress, for the most part, haven't dealt with crypto. It's only, again, in 2 committees, so you're dealing with about 100 members or so. There was that vote on VIT21 that was really strong last year, and we had a lot of surprises, including folks like Nancy Pelosi, who understood this is important to vote for. So the question is, do we see that kind of leadership buy-in from the Democrats saying, hey, it's okay, this is not the Republican versus Democrat fight. This is actually a necessary bill. Those are large decisions that impact the rest of the Democratic caucus. And so will we get the same vote count as VIT21 on the Democrat side? We're hoping so. But again, we have to just take in mind that the Trump family involvement in World Trade Financial and the meme coins and a lot of issues have caused some heartburn for Democrats, and also a vector to attack the Trump administration via crypto legislation, which we didn't really think was a possibility 2 years ago, but here we are now. So that's just the added factor. But overall, the market has been clamoring for this, and this is really, really necessary. And that's where we're telling a lot of folks, like, hey, look, regardless of politics here, this is actually just good policy that we need on the books. And by no means is it like a giveaway to the industry.
No doubt.
It puts regulation on. The industry is asking for regulation.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think, you look at some of the other things that are kind of encompassing what's happening now in the crypto side of that, and that is data privacy. Obviously, this was a tweet from Vitalik. This was talking about Roman Storm. This is one of the Tornado Cash guys that was talking about what could be accepted out there, privacy and messaging without backdoors. That's one of the big one that everybody's looking at right now. Do you think that data privacy versus Congress and how the Democrats would perceive this, because the positions that I've heard in the past from the Dems has been very pro data privacy. This would change things up quite a bit here if this were to go in that direction. What are your thoughts about that?
It's a weird issue, data privacy. It actually kind of is one where the fringes of the Republicans and the fringes of the Democrats do meet in the middle and actually agree. So I worked for Warren Davidson years ago. He's a very pro-privacy member of Congress. And one of his allies is Zoe Lofgren from California, and she's one of the most progressive members out there. And so data privacy does have this weird thing where the edges agree, but the middle does not. Actually, in the past, it was actually a Republican administration that was pretty aggressive on privacy, especially in the first Trump administration. And we are seeing that old guard really being shifted out. And I guess especially the dropping of the Roman Storm case. That has been a really interesting dynamic where these really national security heavy Republicans who like to have as much of a backdoor as possible, both in tech, but also in government, to enact whatever policies they want. That seems to be getting shut down. Again, that's very much seems to be the new Trump administration and the new push from this issue. But again, we've all seen self-custody language get included in the Clarity Act. And the largest pushback for years was actually other Republicans. And so that's been a major shift behind the scenes. I don't think a lot of folks have realized. So I'm glad you brought it up because it's a very interesting battle with the very interesting and very different lines. And it touches so many other issues, of course, especially things like we saw with TikTok and stuff like that years ago. So it remains to be seen. But right now, at least in DC, it's trending in a positive direction. And recall, again, the main hurdle for years ago was national security heavy John McCain types on the Republican side. And that has now evaporated.
What's happening with TikTok right now, obviously we've got a lot of activity going on. One specifically this week. I want to play this clip for you and get your opinion as to whether or not you think this is going to get approved. Take a look.
There is going to be a buyer for the popular social media app.
Pretty much have a deal. I think we're going to start Monday or Tuesday talking to China. So we pretty much have a deal.
President Trump is pretty confident that there is a buyer. In fact, there could be private equity buyers, a consortium who may be interested in buying TikTok US. But in the process, they have launched a new app, sort of suggests they want to decouple the algorithm from the core TikTok usage. So that was also a point of contention in terms of getting the approval. So,
all right. So am I going to have effectively two TikToks out there? The TikTok app we all know and love, and then something that they are doubling internally as M2?
We'll get access to the new app, and then the first one gets phased out.
So this is going to be big. I'm just going to show you a quick headline here. They're talking about this app right here, divest or the ban deadline, and the deadline for this new app right now. Let me kind of zoom in on that. Scheduled to launch on September 5th. Now, TikTok, very, very critical in terms of data privacy. That's been pretty much the campaign that most of what DC has played on. You look at this strategy, though, if this does take place and we end up with, the likes of whether it's Oracle or others out there that could play into an acquisition here, this gets into all of social. I mean, you're talking about X, Facebook, Meta, pretty much anyone that would be really at odds here now with possibly a data privacy issue. Do you think that's going to play out going forward?
100%. I expected to consume much of the fall when Congress gets back in August or after August. It's going to be an issue for hearings. Again, like I mentioned, the party lines on this issue are not straight Republican versus Democrat. Especially on TikTok, it's this also weird thing where you have the anti-China viewpoint of the Trump administration that's being very aggressive, as well as trying to say that this is actually a pretty good technology that has been very instrumental for a lot of things, including the campaign recently. So the lines are very interesting, and that's where we're going to see probably a lot of different vectors here. But in terms of buyers and in terms of folks coming to DC to lobby on these issues, I've definitely seen them in the hallways, on both sides of the aisle here, or both sides of the camps of the TikTok fight. And there's a lot of money being invested in terms of trying to change hearts and minds.
Yeah, I think that's the key. What, to your point, is a lot of lawmakers are now starting to cycle in. We are going to see a new presence, I think, especially in 2026 and obviously going into the midterms late next year. When all this is done, at the end of the day, Ron, what is your outlook here for crypto, especially the blockchain industry as a whole? Is this still, man, we are on fire and we are going to see so much innovation? What's your opinion?
I haven't seen that directly myself, actually. Especially after November. And Wintermute aside, Wintermute actually took him to the White House a couple months ago, Yevgeny and Marina, the COO, and they were very much doubling down on President Trump's message of we're trying to make this the crypto capital of the world, and we're actually establishing a U.S. office. I personally moved from D.C. to New York, and I'm seeing the slew of other companies who are hiring in this space, both for business development teams, but also policy folks. And really, New York's kind of weirdly this crypto capital now. I think a lot of folks from So I've seen it personally, and it's weird going through areas like Soho and even the FIDI areas and seeing a lot of crypto people talking crypto on the streets. I never thought I would see that in years, but crypto's coming to Wall Street. Now the question is kind of, will crypto eat its own tail in DC? Will we have too much in the markets to really be clear as a mature industry, the sky's the limit. But I've been seeing it firsthand in New York very, very recently. And it's got me really excited. So, and again, it's not just Wintermute, it's a lot of companies I'm seeing. And they're actually, a lot of us are in the same WeWork. So it's kind of exciting to see these companies come together, and we're all collaborating together, very much like at the Blockchain Association. It's kind of like a WeWork for crypto. So like all the crypto lobbyists and policy folks come hang out, and we're emulating that in New York, and it's grown tremendously.
I love it. Hey, listen, Ron, it's been great having you back on. I'm going to tap you a couple of times. We'll be covering a lot of this going through the next 6 weeks and into the fall as we start to see a lot of changes coming in the crypto market. So thanks again for coming in. We appreciate it.
Anytime. There'll be plenty to cover, so looking forward to it.
You bet. All right, you guys, make sure and tune in to our Diamond Circle. That's our special group that's available to you guys for free, and all you have to do is click the link down below. You can also follow me on X, which is just @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on The Paul Barron Show.